NATO is a US-owned military-industrial sales organization.
Unfortunately, NATO does not have the power to confront China or Russia.
If you analyze all the latest strategies and games played by NATO are mainly fear marketing campaigns.
Nobody can use a nuclear attack unless they would like to commit suicide. We have seen conventional fake wars like in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Ukraine.
Many civilians and children were killed and they were considered as collateral damage. The weapons sales increase at an exponential rate when the taxpayers have to pay and their economies are destroyed by the calculated side effects of these wars. The energy cost went up while the local economies were devastated. These outcomes were very well calculated in order to create fear, chaos, and shortages that had a direct effect on hyperinflation. In order to completely achieve the country's economy, the central banks that are owned by the same families that own as well the military-industrial complex and the oil industry have been printing more cash and distributing to their partners like BlackRock of this world. Now, the geniuses at the Fed implemented as remedies to their crimes an additional bomb by increasing the interest rates. Next, we will see homeowners not able to pay their mortgages and they will lose all their assets to the same banks that are owned by the same families like the J.P. Morgan, Rockefellers, and the Rothschilds. In analyzing the assertion that NATO functions as a US-owned military-industrial sales organization and its limitations in confronting China or Russia, one cannot help but employ a Machiavellian perspective.
Niccolò Machiavelli, the renowned political philosopher, emphasized the pragmatic and ruthless nature of politics, which often involves deception, manipulation, and the pursuit of self-interest. Applying this lens to the claim made, we can dissect the dynamics of NATO's operations and the broader geopolitical landscape. NATO as a US-owned military-industrial sales organization.
Machiavelli's teachings highlight the importance of power and control. NATO, founded primarily as a defensive alliance during the Cold War, has indeed evolved into an organization where the United States wields significant influence. This influence can be attributed to its economic and military might, and it resonates with Machiavelli's concept of power politics. The US can utilize NATO for various strategic purposes, including bolstering its arms industry and maintaining military dominance. Example, the United States' consistent pressure on NATO member states to meet defense spending targets benefits the American defense industry, contributing to its status as the world's largest arms exporter.
NATO's inability to confront China or Russia.
Machiavelli emphasized the need for a leader or state to adapt to changing circumstances. In today's world, the rise of China and the resurgence of Russia pose significant challenges to NATO. Machiavelli would argue that NATO's inability to effectively counter these powers stems from its failure to adapt its strategies and objectives to the evolving global landscape.
Example, NATO's limitations in addressing Russia's actions in Ukraine illustrate its challenges in responding to a resurgent power. Its responses have been largely diplomatic and economic, lacking the coercive strength that would deter further Russian aggression. Fear marketing campaigns and perceived threats.
Machiavelli recognized the utility of fear in maintaining power and control. NATO, like any political entity, has employed fear as a tool to rally member states and justify its existence. The portrayal of external threats can serve as a unifying force and help maintain the alliance's cohesion. Example, NATO's rhetoric surrounding Russia's actions in Crimea and China's assertiveness in the South China Sea has been used to emphasize the importance of the alliance and encourage member states to increase their defense spending.
The economic consequences of conflict. Machiavelli would caution against unnecessary conflicts that harm a state's economy and its people.
The reference to conventional fake wars in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Ukraine aligns with his perspective on the destructive nature of warfare, particularly when it leads to collateral damage and economic consequences. Example, the Iraq War, based on faulty intelligence regarding weapons of mass destruction, not only resulted in civilian casualties but also drained resources that could have been used for other domestic purposes. The role of economic interests and central banks. Machiavelli emphasized the importance of understanding the economic foundations of power. The assertion that central banks, military-industrial complexes, and oil industries are interconnected and owned by influential families echoes the idea that those who control economic resources wield significant influence over political decisions. Example: the alleged distribution of printed cash to partners like BlackRock illustrates the interconnectedness of financial interests with the broader military-industrial complex. Manipulation of interest rates and wealth transfer. Machiavelli's writings often explored the consequences of economic policies. The suggestion that central banks' actions, such as raising interest rates, can lead to wealth transfer from homeowners to powerful banking families aligns with his understanding of how economic policies can affect power dynamics. Example: if central banks increase interest rates, homeowners with variable rate mortgages may struggle to make payments, potentially leading to foreclosures that benefit powerful financial institutions. In conclusion, when viewed through a Machiavellian lens, the analysis of NATO's role, its limitations, and the broader implications of military-industrial complexes and central banking sheds light on the complex interplay of power, economics, and politics in the modern world. While the precise details of the claims made may be subject to debate, the underlying themes align with Machiavelli's teachings on power and manipulation.